Aloha, and I want to welcome all of you stewards of the land, humanitarians, and just beautiful lovers of life to another episode of A Dose of Positivity. This is where I have the great privilege each week to interview these passionate change makers, thought leaders, and social and environmental innovators. I'm super psyched today. We're on this topic because we've been talking about grieving and death and dying and business and growing our lives and all kinds of stuff. But this topic today is called breaking free. Breaking free. Like free of grief, free of fear of dying, free of escaping from all that self-sabotage that we feel. And we're going to, today with my special guest, Christy Holt, we're going to be exploring your relationship with yourself to get unstuck around whatever area it is that you might be feeling stuck. And while I do the intro and do a quick reading, I'd like to challenge all of you or invite you to just think of one thing that you feel that might be keeping you stuck. Is it your health? Is it your mother-in-law? Is it your kid or your dog? I mean, there are a million excuses to be stuck, right? So today, I'm offering this opportunity for you to meet with this incredible woman to help you get through, be open to getting unstuck. And I want to remind everybody that this is a live broadcast. And for all of those listening in on the Facebook channels and the feed on LinkedIn, feel free to write your comments and questions. Let us know right now in the chat. Anybody who wants to be bold enough or just cares enough about their own self-wealth, self-well-being, put in the chat right now what is holding you back, what's keeping you stuck right now. Really think about that. It's okay. I know right now I'm going to be really vulnerable and really honest. I'm stuck because I'm having some health issues, and it's like stuck in all parts of my body and I don't know where to start. But is it stopping me from doing the things that I love, like showing up here for a dose of positivity? Hell no. And oh, by the way, that reminds me, Christy and I have a pact. We do swear on this show, so be prepared for some dirty language, but in a fun, justful way, okay? So before I introduce you to this incredible human, I want to read something to you about beliefs, and it's in my book, Conscious Cures Solutions to 21st Century Pandemics. And I'm choosing to read this because it's what we believe in, right? If we believe we're stuck in something, we can believe we can get out unstuck, right? So here we go, just a couple of minutes of this, and it'll set the tone for the conversation. I believe that we can create a more harmonious world when we can change the greedy extraction narrative and respect each other's compassionate beliefs. Yes, we all have different beliefs. The faith I have gives me the determination to be a voice for nature, for what she or he or the divine represents. I do not doubt that when I die, whether it be from hunger, COVID, or a lightning strike, that I will rise again like a phoenix, even with health issues. Nothing dies. I live my life knowing that the winter needs the spring and the flower needs the rain. And much of what we have been taught is contrary to nature's wisdom. I choose to believe that we can live in a world drenched with love and compassion and work within the systems of cycles of nature and our own beliefs. Imagine the world with trusted leadership that prioritize regenerative principles and equity for all of lifekind. We would have world peace, eradicate hunger, and clean up the mess that we've made. For God's sakes, we've figured out how to send a robot to Mars. We can figure out our beliefs. Sometimes it takes a traumatic event to change our lives. These tragic events offer us opportunities to transform our belief systems and even the human-made systems that have screwed things up. It's not the power of the rich with greedy perception that are going to save the world. Instead, like the miraculous power of flowing water, we can take our energy and transmute it into being part of the solution for our own self and everything around us. We can focus our like force on getting healthier, igniting our inner embers, and bring part of the flame that heals. Spoiling yourself with self-love and prioritizing mental, emotional health is the top tier to save your world and the world. Once you have done that, you are unstoppable and can share your wealth with others. Seek secure connections that make you feel loved and alive, and appreciate the synchronicity. Have faith in beliefs that heal. Well, that is a front row stage for Christy Holt to come in, because she is a self-proclaimed happiness hussy. And I want to thank you all for listening and listening to this conversation we're about to have to help you do breakthrough. And Chrissy happens to be a coach and a podcast host of Create Your Happy Inspiration for Conscious Women. And she is also an international best-selling author, Unstuck for Women, who loves to show people how to get out of the survival mode so that they can consciously create the happy life, relationship, and impact that they desire. Christy's a coach for make sure you get this right, whole ass humans, not half-assed, whole ass humans, using her signature CREATE method, which we're going to talk about. She journeys alongside of her soul-led clients to support and love them as they discover and unlearn bad habits and new beliefs. Christy's mentorship helps her clients to connect with the soul alignment desires and become unfuckable-ish so that nothing stops them from making the massive impact that they are meant to do. And I just want to thank you so much, Christy. I know you've had a busy week, a busy day. Welcome to A Dose of Positivity. And please come on and share a little bit about who you are and how you came to this place to be such an inspiration to so many people.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super grateful to be here. If you haven't heard my voice normally, you might not notice anything, but I'm a little under the weather with a bit of a cold. I have 4 teenage boys, and some of them were sick, and I held off for nearly a week in getting that. And today I kind of woke up with a little bit more cold symptoms, but we're still here. It's a little blip on the radar, and that's not going to hold me back from sharing my story or something that might make an impact in the world. So thanks for having me. Where do I even begin with my story? Honestly, I'm a happiness hussy who is on a massive mission to change the world. I really feel that by really cultivating the relationship that we have with ourselves, that's how we can go about changing the world, from the inside out. And part of my story is, I was there. I was stuck for a really long time. When I was stuck, I struggled with overwhelm and anxiety, and I kept getting looped into these thought and emotional spirals. I'm sure you all can relate. You have one thought and all of a sudden there's a whole storm of thoughts going on. You don't even know where they all came from. Like it's not even you, just full of thoughts. And so these thought spirals kept taking me down, and they kept me trapped in this sense of suffering. And I've actually, realized, wow, my thoughts have caused me a great deal of suffering in the past. And so I finally did find a way to break free from that. But I'll tell you what, it was not easy when I was stuck, because I was very fearful of the uncertain, which is very understandable to feel that way. And I know, everybody experiences fear from time to time. And when we're not sure what to expect, it's easy for that fear to come up and get in our way. And so,
can I ask you a quick question? Because this is really important. Because for people who are stuck or feeling stuck and like where you're at, like what created that stuckness for you?
yeah, I was just going to say, actually, I was in a relationship that really wasn't really serving me. And it was really difficult and really challenging. And what I ended up doing was sort of getting sucked into people pleasing and managing other people's emotions. And I really kind of lost myself in this whole motherhood thing. I call it just a momitis, right? Where you're just a mother and you're so focused on doing the parenting and the mothering and the household things that you kind of forget, kind of lose track of who you were before all of that. And so I had found myself in this place where I didn't really know what I wanted. I very clearly could identify what I didn't want, what felt really icky and bad, but I really had a hard time, getting out of that loop of people pleasing long enough to find out and to sit with myself to figure out what I really wanted for me, because it had always been for a long, long time about what was best for everyone else. And so I actually, discovered a lot of this. It did some self-discovery work towards the end of my marriage. And in the end, I came to the conclusion, I spent a long time staying for the kids, as many people do. They don't want to break up their family. Divorce is a huge, huge decision. And I didn't take it lightly in any way, shape, or form. But I realized at one point that what I actually needed to do was to go first and lead the way. I had kids and I wanted them to live their best life, to be happy, to create the experiences that they desired and deserved. And here I was settling for something that was far less than that. And so I had this kind of holy shit moment where I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm the common denominator in all of my issues here. And it took me a minute and reeled a little bit from that. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm also the common denominator in all of my solutions. And if I could just get out of the thought spirals long enough, I could create the space to intentionally decide how I was going to respond. And I could actually work on reprogramming my brain, rewiring it. So where I didn't feel previously that there was choice, because I did feel a lot of times there wasn't really a lot of choice. I felt very helpless, but this was just my brain playing tricks on me, right? There is always a choice available. And so I worked on reprogramming, rewiring my brain to look for the options, to look for the creative solutions instead of looking at the problems and waiting for other things outside of me to change. I took radical responsibility and I started doing the work on myself. And that was a game changer. And so as I'm looking back now, this was probably about 6 years ago. The whole divorce thing took about a year. So about 6 years ago. And I have been on quite a journey, honestly, since then. I actually have the most amazing partner ever now. That's maybe a whole side tangent for another part of the show later if we have time. But I realized looking back that what I had to do was actually stop the spiral so that I could choose for myself. And so that is what Unstuck is really ultimately about. I share my spiral stopper method to get you unstuck from those thought spirals so that you can create the space needed to consciously choose, move out of survival and into intention, move out of reacting and moving into responding. And that was such a game changer for me. And I knew I had to share it. I couldn't not share it. I'm just that kind of person. I've been put here to share the things that I discover and learn. And, maybe I take the long, hard route on some of the things, but it has all been worth it. And, I always say, if I could go back, I sometimes think, I wonder if I knew then in my previous relationship, what I know now, would things have been different? And the answer I always come up with was, maybe, but it doesn't matter because I learned so much through that whole process about myself that I couldn't be here where I am right now without having gone through it. So although it seemed like one big mess, I have managed to turn that mess into my message. And now I can use that to help other people to get unstuck, to free themselves from, relationship or thought patterns or whatever other things they might have going on that make them feel so stuck.
Yeah, I love that. Being prisoners of their own minds. And I don't know if anybody would like to put in the chat anything like what is keeping you a prisoner. And I know a lot of what happened during COVID. A lot of people didn't realize that they had shackles on when they had the opportunity to open the door and walk out. And they became used to that you become used to it, like you were used to it and you were trying to keep it together and having your marriage together. A lot of us will settle for less. And I think that what you're talking about is no, fuck no, right?
No,
No.
none of that. Life is too short for settling. And,
Right.
I just think if it's in your heart to experience something different, you deserve that. And that is meant for you. We are not meant to suffer. And oh my gosh, we often create so much suffering in our own experience just through our thoughts, right?
Mhm.
And not allowing our emotions to move through also causes them to remain stagnant. And so we really can get stuck in this suffering of our own making. We deserve that freedom. We deserve to be free of that. And, there are so many things to experience as a human. We've got to stop limiting ourselves to what's possible, because the truth is anything is possible.
Well, Christy, what do you say to somebody who's suffering from severe anxiety? They have been suffering that way maybe their whole entire life. It's kind of part of how they grew up. There was abandonment issues or whatever going on, and you went through a 6-year transformation. But what's the first thing in your Unstuck book that you would recommend? Because there's a lot of people like that right now who have a lot of anxiety. And how do you do that? I mean, where do you define the line from mental illness to anxiety to like, oh, you need medication, to your bipolar, or you have nothing left to give because you're just a mother, whatever that whatever that
Just a
term,
momitis.
just a momitis. I mean, that's an anxious place to be, right?
Yeah.
So how do you answer that question? I mean, specifically when you have a client or anybody on this call who's suffering from anxiety, and it's not that they don't want to change.
No, of course not. They're not making a conscious choice to do that, right? That's a survival mechanism, right? And so, breaking free from overthinking and overwhelm and anxiety actually involves just getting present in the now moment, because when we're dealing with anxious thoughts, we're actually projecting into the future, right? We're anticipating something into the future. That's what's causing us anxiety. It's not typically the here and the now. It's thinking about what might or might not happen, or things that could go down. And most often that can be really minimized by coming into the present now moment. And the same could be said of ruminating or really thinking about the past and having depressive thoughts, because that is a lot of time spent in your mind in the past. And so bringing yourself into the now moment can really help you to create that space where you can get a little bit more clarity. My book is ultimately, the Spiral Stopper is ultimately building a toolbox of resources, because we're complicated as humans. I'm sorry, cold is getting me, and I have a little drip. We're real humans here, real whole ass humans, not
Yes.
infallible, unfuckwithable, but not infallible. So the Spiral Stopper method is a toolbox, right? The same resource that you would be able to maybe utilize when you're at home might not be the same one that you can use while you're in line at the grocery store. So it's good to have a number of resources that you can draw from. And ultimately, that's what this is about, is creating the resources in advance so that when you start feeling the start of those things, that you can build a new habit of moving through it without reacting, so that you can consciously respond, right? Without getting sucked into the stories. It's typically not our emotions that are the problem, or even the bodily sensations. It's all of the meaning and stories and judgments and everything else that we're attaching to it inside of our mind, which very often is on autopilot. We're not consciously choosing to think these things. They're just coming up from past experiences, often from past traumas, may they be big, small, unresolved. They might even be from traumas you are completely unaware of, because we can actually be traumatized by not having an experience that we really needed on, right? And that could be really hard to identify. If your parents didn't give you something that you needed, validation or love or physical affection, the lack of that can even cause a trauma response. So ultimately, the spiral stopper is creating the space so we can look at what is actually coming up. Those triggers, those things that are activating us and making us feel some kind of way. It's not about identifying the meaning of it so much as allowing it to exist, right? And giving ourselves the compassion and the acceptance. I call it radical acceptance, because, oh my gosh, can it really be hard to fully accept yourself where you're at? And especially when we've got this idea in our head that loving ourselves is probably selfish, according to someone else. I mean, we get kind of sucked into this view that self-love is selfish. We get sucked into the view that, if we give ourselves compassion, we might not have motivation. We might become complacent. We might become lazy. We might become all of these terrible things. And the truth is, those are all lies. That's all fear-based thinking that serves only to keep you small in your comfort zone. And speaking of comfort zone, what happens is these thoughts in our mind, and in my book, I refer to sort of like the ego and these negative thoughts as the asshole mind. The truth is that your mind is not an asshole. You're not self-sabotaging yourself. It's all about self-preservation. And this self-preservation means to keep you safe in your comfort zone where things are familiar. So it's not what's best for you. It's not where you're going to expand. It's where things are known and certain, right? And that's where the ego likes to hang out, because it's safer. But we really need to learn how to create safety to expand beyond that comfort zone if we want to experience different things. And the unfortunate thing is if you have gotten into a pattern of anxious thinking, that might feel safe and familiar. And so it can feel damn near impossible to break out of that safe and familiar zone, that habit of being anxious, because that feels natural. And a lot of times this can come from childhood, where perhaps that anxious feeling was your normal, right? And so we're always kind of cycling back to what feels normal for us, which might not be what is best. And oftentimes we really need to create some space so that we can take a look at, is this serving me, or is it actually holding me back?
Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of like you got to show up with your whole ass, not half ass.
And embracing the whole human.
Yeah.
We've got the good, the bad, the light, the dark. We've got the up, the down. We are all of that. We are infinite potentiality. And so we have to welcome in all of that, even those parts of us that we may have pushed aside because someone told us they weren't okay, that we were too much, that we weren't good enough, that we were weird or quirky or whatever. When we start bringing those pieces back into ourselves and integrating them back in, that is how we can start to find more freedom.
Yeah. And here's the challenge, right? Because that could be your mother, your father, it could be your best friend, it could be your lover, where you're getting those things from. And then there's that looking at ourselves and realizing, okay, well, I always like to say, you can get a blood transfusion, but you can't live without water. And water are your friends. It will keep you buoyant, keep you afloat, and then you as a friend back, keep them buoyant and afloat. So as hard as it is, sometimes there may be real strife in those, relationships. And if sometimes just for a while, if you want to get unstuck, you have to say, what the fuck? And I'm out of here for a little while. So,
yeah.
And then the other thing that, you're just sparking so much in me, just thinking about times, you know, when it's hard to believe that I'm stuck. I mean, I'm not saying that from an ego place, I'm saying it from an ADH place, because also when you look at your biochemistry or who you are as a person, like people truly who are ADHD, you know, they have a hard time sticking with anything.
Yeah.
So, but you could be more on the OCD side of things, right? So it's really a matter of kind of appreciating and knowing who you are, you know, what DNA or what chemistry. Not that you can't change within that, right, Christy? You can.
Absolutely. You can
But
change it all.
yeah. Well, tell us how to change it all in the next 25 minutes.
Oh my
Give us
gosh.
give
I
us
wish it
give
were
us some
so simple.
give us some exercise or examples on what people can do if they're stuck.
Well, I think that the main thing that people really ultimately need to move past that is to be seen, heard, loved, and accepted exactly as they are. And unfortunately, that doesn't really often happen in circumstances like talk therapy. They're talking, but it just seems to perpetuate things, to talk it out and talk it out and talk it out. They're not actually feeling. And if you're still feeling like you need to keep talking and talking, you're not feeling completely heard. Otherwise, you know, you'd feel more complete, right? And so finding someone who is able to extend unconditional love, and also learning to love yourself unconditionally, but that can be really hard if you're trying to go alone, right? So finding someone who can really, you know, guide you and help you, lend you a little bit of their unconditional love while you start to build up your own. That is really the way. And I mean, there's no one answer for everybody. The truth is your way to unlock it is within you. It's just a matter of uncovering that part of yourself and doing a little bit of self-discovery. Again, a guide can help you to do that inner work and really figure out, well, what's going on in there, and reframing. Because, you know, a lot of people think, oh, I've got this weird thing, and it's someone once told me I shouldn't have that. And so we go through life thinking that we're bad and wrong because we have this thing that someone else didn't like. But the truth is that may very well be a superpower in disguise, right? And so when we learn to really embrace our wholeness, we can start to work with those things instead of against them. It opens us up to so much more possibility. And I know that's really sort of generic, but without specifically talking about one specific scenario, I think that's the high level overview of sort of the journey to go on. It's learning to love and accept yourself, right? So that now you can recognize you're actually really freaking magical. You've got superpowers that nobody else has. And how do you harness and use those instead of fighting and trying to hide them? And I'm actually doing a people pleasing masterclass on May 15th, because I really feel like there are so many people that are trapped in the pattern of people pleasing. And this is, I mean, living up to everyone else's expectations, you know, shoulding on yourself, not saying no when you want to say no, so that you're over giving and you're to the point of burnout and exhaustion. And I know these are all things that I have personally gone through and struggled with. Perfectionism, trying to be good enough and measure up for other people. And it's all about this external appearance to other people. And we forget about ourselves in that process very often. So it can be a really big game changer to take things back, reclaim your power. And you never gave it away. You can't. You are infinitely powerful exactly as you are. You just forget, because humans forget. We forget how powerful we are. And so we can reclaim that power, and then we can actually become more authentically ourselves. And that's how you become unfuckwithable, right? You're not worried about what someone else says because you're the only one who really truly knows you, right? It doesn't matter what someone else thinks. They don't know you. They haven't lived your life. They haven't had all of those experiences that have brought you to this place. And so when you kind of start to really understand that and embody it, because understanding it here is a little bit different than fully integrating and embodying that knowledge in an experiential way. But when you can start to embody that and bring that on board, you will find a whole lot more freedom.
I love that. That's like your superpower. And you know what, when you think about it, and anybody who wants to put it in the chat, I see you guys are being a little quiet in the chat today. It's very unlike you. Maybe you're stuck. So get unstuck. And if anybody wants to, I invite you to put into the chat what you feel like your superpower is. Let's stay on the positivity note, not what's getting you stuck, because what we focus on grows, right? So
Absolutely.
I love what you're saying here, and it just gives so much hope and feeling. And if you like that, like we've said it before and we'll say it again, if you want to be stuck, hang around with 5 people who are more stuck than you, and damn it, you'll be stuck. You'll be stuck for a long time. And
Yeah.
hang around with people who are unstuck. And everybody who comes up every week to a dose of positivity, you guys are so rock solid and so awesome. I want to thank all of you for showing up here every week. I love you all so much. I mean, we're not stuck people who come to the show usually. Most people are, they've got things to offer and things to share, and it's very cool. And but it's that what you just said there is so profound about this self-love thing, and I'm not worthy. How do you go about unfolding the onion where someone can actually look in the mirror and say, I really do love you. We're going to have a kick-ass day today because we're whole ass.
Yeah. I mean, it's a journey. So even if you're not feeling overly stuck, there is always room to continue growing. There is no end destination. There is always a next level and a next layer to unfold and unpack. So even if you've got your shit mostly together, there is still always going to be some kind of challenges, some level up that you could do. There is always more available. So, don't look at this as if I'm not stuck, so this isn't for me. It's for everybody ultimately, because there's always room to create more happiness in your life. So, it's really more of just leaning into that expansion, taking the journey, asking the questions, remaining curious is one of the best attributes that you can have with a growth mindset, because you've got to ask yourself those questions. And if you're struggling to find the right questions, or you're not really sure, this is where someone who could guide you through those could be quite helpful. Because here's the thing, our reticular activating system, our brain filter, right? It filters in the information based on what it thinks. And again, okay, safety first. It's going for safety and familiarity. So it filters in the information that aligns with that, right? Natural confirmation bias. You see what you're looking for. Okay. This is, people talk about the car analysis, right? A new car, all of a sudden you see everybody has that car. This is how that reticular activating system works. Now, if you don't want to just keep doing the familiar, you've got to start looking for different things and asking different questions. But because we have this confirmation bias in there, and this sort of not self-sabotage, but this self-preservation mechanism built in, it can be hard to know what those questions are, because we want to avoid them and remain safe, right? So it can be really helpful to work with someone who can help you to ask those questions, who can look at things from an outside perspective and maybe see those things that you might be missing in your own self-discovery work. I know this has been really beneficial for me to work with other people, because sometimes, just quite frankly, you cannot see all of your own shit, and you don't really want to. So that's a whole conflict of interest, right? Because looking at it means now you might have to do something with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do something. You know what's so interesting too, and I don't know if anybody else feels this. Like, I turned 65 this year, and it opened me to being unstuck on. You have these benchmarks too, like these things that you climb a mountain. You achieve that goal, and I know a lot of our audience who are listening, who are on the call live today, you guys, are in their 60s or even 70s, or possibly even into their 80s. And, it is interesting. I wonder, is there a demographic of stuckness? Like, where's most of the glue, at what time in people's lives do they feel more stuck? And I'm trying to think, certain times when I felt really stuck or maybe more scared was that transition from, being in the nest with the family, with the parental units and the college, and shifting and going out on my own. And there's part of me that was, I'm going to jump off a cliff with a parachute because I'm cool. But the other part of me was like, oh my God, I'm stuck between one place or another. And then you get into your older age, and health issues happen, and your friends, everybody around you is dying, and whatever. And you might get stuck in this mode like, oh, I can't do that, I'm going to break my hip, or I can't do that, I'm going to catch COVID. So is there, I know I went from one stuckness to another stuckness, but from the spectrum of age, is there a more stuck time that you notice in an age demographic where people are maybe more stuck?
I honestly think it's pretty across the board. People can get stuck at any point in time. And I think that we often will feel stuck when we are feeling the call to expansion, right? We'll feel this nudge, like something's calling us to more, but we might be a little fearful of going after it, right? It might feel overwhelming. It might feel too big. And we might get stuck in analysis paralysis, trying to figure out how in the hell we're actually going to get to that thing that we have in mind. And so I think that creates a lot of stuckness as well. I know for me, I actually, I thought when I turned 40, I was like, I'm finally free. Like I finally felt like I knew myself. But I have also worked with people that are younger than that who have learned those lessons a lot, maybe a little bit easier and earlier in life than the time it took me. So I think it all depends on the journey. I think, your childhood trauma, which we all have some degree of trauma throughout our entire lives. And if we haven't healed and processed through it, we can end up carrying that with us, maybe completely unbeknownst to us. And I mean, trauma could be simple little things. It could be a nothing event as far as anyone else is concerned. And ultimately, the issue is the way we process it, the way we experience and internalize it. It's not as much about the event. So it could be, something really a non-starter for someone else could be very traumatizing to one person. So it's really hard to unpack that. And it's like I say it, and like you said too, it's like a journey. It's an onion. It's a slow unpeeling the onion one layer after another. And we can only do that at the pace at which we are ready. It's our journey. Like I've really definitely learned that you can't push someone else along their journey without their desire to do that. And I spent a lot of time wishing and hoping, that my ex was going to want to shift and grow along with me. But at a certain point, you realize that you have no control over anybody but yourself. And so you've got to decide what is best for you. Now, when I was in that situation, I didn't know what was best for me. I knew it was worse. And I was like, I don't want that. I'm done with this. This is not working. But to get to the other side, to figure out what do I want, it was a bit of a challenge because I felt so stuck and I had a hard time coming from that relationship where I felt very, very low, very, very unloved, very unsupported, very, what other words can I say here to really explain? Like I just really, my self-worth was at a really low place. I didn't know if I was worthy of those things on the flip side, right? That wasn't my current experience, right? So I knew right here what I have, this stuck shitty situation was the safe and familiar. And I wasn't sure if I really deserved to have that big dream pie in the sky life that I wanted in my heart and soul. And so part of this discovery of, oh my gosh, it's me. And then starting to take little actions, baby steps, one baby step in the right direction, that created more clarity, more momentum, and more motivation for me to continue that growth journey. And it did get to the point where I finally did figure out, oh, this is who I am. And this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is for me. This isn't for me. And becoming back in touch with my emotions and not just living in my mind made a huge difference too, because then I could learn to listen to my intuition to guide me as my inner barometer. This feels good. This is for me. More of this, please, versus ooh, that does not feel good. I do not like that. I need to set boundaries or make different choices so that I'm not finding myself in those situations. Our intended state is feeling really freaking good, right? So those things, and yes, I know sometimes there are things we have to do we don't like to do, like taxes, and that's not fun. And that's a little bit different. But in the general sense of things where you have an option of things you can experience and explore, like your heart and your soul are guiding you, and we just so often don't listen.
Right, right. Well, I'm listening to every word you're saying, and I'm just thrilled to hear it. And I also want to share that, sometimes the onion doesn't have as many peels as the other onion, and you can get unstuck a lot quicker. And it's
Yeah.
just up to you and what you believe and what state of mind you're in, or what, whatever your situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most stuck people gets unstuck the fastest, when the fire comes and the doors close and you got to get out the window, and you're not, you have the seconds to get unstuck. So it
Yeah.
depends how fast whatever's burning inside of you to make that change, what the fire in your belly to get unstuck is. And I feel like, from my perspective, like for me, I've never been stuck for very long. And when I get stuck, I just go right to gratitude. I go right to, I am so grateful for who I am, what I have right now. This is my life, and this is where I'm headed. And if I don't like something, I move on. Maybe not from the dinner table, but, I like most of the food on the table. But so I get, seriously, I mean, we don't have to be trapped. I mean, the world needs us, kind of like what I was writing about. I mean, we a bunch of messed up people thinking like, oh, I'm so stuck, I'm paralyzed, I can't do this, I love this, but I don't know if I can do that. I mean, how long do you want to be stuck? I mean, it's fucked to be stuck. Let's face it.
It's
So,
not fun.
it's
Yeah. And
not
like you
fun.
said in that reading at the start, right? Our beliefs are so important. And the good news is we can change them. We can literally rewire them and build in new habits into our thinking that serve us moving forward and having the life we want. So why would we? I know no one's intentionally choosing to just stay stuck and be like, well, this is shitty and I'm just going to stay here. No one's choosing that. But if you're listening and you're feeling a bit stuck and I'm not choosing this, know that you still have other options, right? And sometimes having that awareness that there are always other options is a catalyst. And I think, really honestly, I really think that self-compassion is the missing link for a lot of self-healing, because we're so scared that it's going to make us lazy, complacent, unmotivated, whatever else, because we're too gentle on myself and I'm not going to do everything I'm supposed to do and perform in all of these ways. Well, that's probably the problem, right? We're not here to do and perform. You don't need to measure up or prove your worth to be good enough. You are already worthy. You are already good enough. And everything else is not the truth. So when we start working on,
you heard her. Yeah, you're good enough. I love that.
yeah, we're more than good enough, exactly as we are, even with those weird, quirky weaknesses, quotes on weaknesses, because it's only your perception that creates it as a weakness. It might be a superpower and you just don't know. I don't know how many people I've spoken to that they feel like, well, I'm just too sensitive. No, your emotions are your superpower. Those are your inner barometer. That's going to point you in the direction of the things that are meant for you. And here you are thinking, I'm just too sensitive and I need to pull up my big girl panties and show up and do the fucking thing. No.
Right. Yeah.
Start by loving yourself. Start by accepting yourself, by giving yourself compassion, because first of all, nobody's perfect. I say nobody's perfect. That's from The Good Place on TV. That's a funny little saying, nobody's perfect. But nobody is perfect. We can't, there's no measure for that. So who decides what's perfect anyway? So you're trying to like measure up. It's a waste of time and energy, because it's like a mirage. As soon as you think you're getting closer to your perfect, oh my God, it's gone. It's way over there now. The bar keeps moving. So that's a futile effort to keep doing that. So really accepting yourself, giving yourself that love and compassion actually is the catalyst that you need. It's not going to come from guilt and shame and punishing yourself. That is not a good motivator, despite what so many people have been led to believe, because it works. have this conversation with my son recently and asked him, do you think that shaming yourself and beating yourself up over your mistakes actually helps you to grow and build and get better? And he's like, yeah, it works. And I'm like, but does it though? Because you feel shitty. So is it really working? Like, is that your ideal? What if you could have it work and you feel good? Would that not be the better way to go about it? And that's the truth. That's available to everyone. By loving and accepting ourselves, we can really truly step into our highest power. We can operate at our best level. We can integrate those amazing parts of ourselves. And when you show up as authentically yourself, some people might fall away in your life. That might be too hard for them to see and handle. And some people might fall away. They just aren't your people. And that's okay. I remember Oprah saying that, not for everybody. There's a certain number of people that are just not going to like you. And that's okay. Like, thank God the world is full of 8 billion people who are all unique expressions of humanity. But if you show up as authentically yourself and you express your authentic self, your people will show up. And that is how you end up feeling seen and heard and loved and accepted, because it's the right people. And if you're pretending and you're people pleasing, you're wearing masks and trying so hard to prove yourself, you just get stuck in a loop, right? And you don't feel seen or heard because you're not even being you. So even if someone does hear you, you think they still wouldn't like me if they knew the real me. They would maybe feel different if they knew what I was really like on the inside. And I hear this all the time from people, right? They wouldn't feel the same way if they really knew me. The truth is, if you show up authentically, your people are going to absolutely love you, right? And they are going to make you feel so seen, loved, heard, accepted, and you are going to maybe even be able to borrow some of their amazing belief in you to start moving forward towards your dreams, towards that happy life, relationship, impact, business, world changing goals that you might have. You're still muted, Mama Donna.
My dogs are barking. What I was saying was, oh my God, that was a good dose of positivity right there. Yes. Thank you so much for that. That was just a beautiful way to kind of close out this session. And before we do, and before I have you coming back on to say some closing words to us, because I see some people put their awesomeness in here. What their superpowers are. And thank you, Jillian, for being, I love that, my awesomeness. And garlic, Alan likes garlic, but so it's really important to show up, basically. And I'm just so grateful for you showing up today, Christy, and for everybody who showed up on live and everybody who's on the Facebook group, and for all of you who are listening to the replay. Thank you so much. Spread the love, spread the positivity wherever you can, wherever you go. Christy has a fabulous show. I'm going to be a guest on her show coming up here this late summer sometime. And we'll keep you all posted on that. And I also wanted to share with you some incredible mana. And Christy, you don't want to miss the show either. Next week, Kel, I'm going to have you come off mute and say Opela's name right for me. Opela Lapala. It's a Hawaiian name. And Kel, are you there? How do I say Opela's name?
Yeah, it's Olelo Pa.
It's kind of like that word you said from that show that's backwards. I'll have it down by next week. Thank you, Tel. Olelo Pa, she is the one, and I know a lot of you are in our Facebook group. She comes up and puts up great recipes from time to time. She's going to prepare some totally freaking awesome food to help you have more self-love, self-confidence, because food sets your mood, sets your tone. Food is energy, food is love, food is life. So she is going to be our guest next week. She's in her 70s. She's a coach and a healer herself, and she is very close to the INA and really works for social and environmental justice causes and uses food like myself as a modality to change the world. And I'm so excited for that. And Tel, if you want to put in, if you can find it, a free copy of Conscious Cures, that might be a nice gift to give. I think we have some new people on here. We'll get your email. We'll put you in our Facebook group, or at least put our Facebook group in there and then we can put the book in there in the Facebook Live. So anybody who's new on the program, I think there's one or two of you new. Thank you so much for showing up. Please join our Facebook group and come every week. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, reach out to us as well. And so, Christy, what I would love to leave you with everybody, unless anybody has any other questions or comments they want to say, we have just a few minutes left here. I would love for you to like close us out here and just talk about like reasons why people should get out of bed and reasons what keep people in bed in the morning, because that morning time is so important. It sets the tone of every single day. You know, where are we going to step? Are we on the wrong side of the bed, or are we on the right side of the bed? And so, you know, it's like that's one of my superpowers is I wake up every single morning and I approach each day with a gratitude hug. And I'm grateful for the day. Even if I might not be feeling on top of my game, I am so grateful to be here and be alive. That is my superpower, my gratitude for life. And my courage each and every day to step out on the bed, out of bed, whether it's the right or the left foot that's coming out first, that it's going to be the best day ever, because I'm going to make it that way. That is my belief. And you guys put the blog from this week about beliefs. Please, all of you download that blog if you haven't read it already. It'll make you feel as good as Christy Holt has made us feel today. And I want to remind you all also to check out her book, and also please check out her podcast as well. So Christy, what gets you out of bed in the morning, and what suggestions do you have for people who might be struggling to make it the best day?
You know, I start my morning every day with, I call it a meditation. So I love to do my meditation in that in-between time when I'm just sort of waking up. Our subconscious is most susceptible in that in-between theta phase between sleep and wake. So I try my best to kick off my morning first thing with a brief 10, 20 minutes, depending. Sometimes it's 5. Sometimes I have places to be and things to do, so it's 5 minutes. But I, like you, really think that gratitude is super game changing. And so I'm actually working on a companion journal to go with my Unstuck book that is going to be a hit of gratitude for each day, a little reminder to take a moment and be grateful for those things that you have. It might be your cup of coffee. It might be that the sun is shining. It doesn't have to be big or complicated. It could be that you have warm socks to put on your feet. I live in Canada, so we have socks. If I lived in Hawaii, I might not need socks, but here we are. So being grateful for just those little things. Honestly, what gets me out of bed is just a passion to change the world and to make a difference. And I can't explain it. It's just part of my soul's desire to share and inspire other people, because I learned so much on my own journey, and I can't not share that with people. And I know it can make a huge difference. So why wouldn't I share? And I love my bed. So maybe it's not the best question about asking me how to get out of my bed in the morning, but I get up so that I can make a difference in the world, so I can do these things. I just do it on my own schedule. So I'll tell you what, you don't need to get up at 4 a.m. to be a business owner, podcast host, or an author, any of those things. You can do what feels authentic and right for you, but definitely starting that morning with some gratitude or some inner reflection, or even just to quietly create that space as you move from sleeping to waking, can really set your day off on the right foot. And if you set your day off on the right foot, when you feel better, you do better, right? And so when you feel good, you're more likely to do those things and show up for yourself and really give yourself the love and compassion that you truly desire and deserve. And ultimately, you know, the bravest thing that you can do is be yourself. So I want to encourage you all to just really embrace who you are, your whole ass human, and just embrace and love that, because that is how we are going to change the world. And by showing up authentically, we can inspire others to do the same, right? That's why that ripple effect is going to make such a difference in the world.
Such beautiful closing words. Listen, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on A Dose of Positivity. You have been a true inspiration, a true model for what it takes to get unstuck. I hope that everybody checks out your book and your podcast. And while you're waiting for Christy's beautiful company journal, pop in the link. I have an incredible journey called I Am, and it's a journey to cultivating abundance, and it is absolutely stunning. So, and we can even send you a free ebook copy of that if you put your email in there. But you can find my books and Christy's books on Amazon and wherever Greek books are sold. Anyway, all your support and your love is so appreciated. And if you're listening to the replay, I want to just thank you all for coming, and please subscribe to our channel and come join us on a live broadcast in the future. So big love and aloha and lots of self-love and gratitude coming your way. And this show is a wrap.